The year was 1350, and in the royal courts of medieval Europe, something was happening that would make modern beauty standards seem tame by comparison. What you're about to hear is the shocking truth about what medieval people considered beautiful, and the horrifying lengths they went to achieve their twisted ideals. This isn't the romantic fairy tale version of medieval life you learned about. This is the disturbing reality of beauty standards so extreme that they literally killed people. What medieval nobles did to their bodies in pursuit of beauty was so barbaric, so dangerous, that even their own physicians warned against it. But vanity proved stronger than survival, and the result was a culture of self-mutilation disguised as fashion that would make modern plastic surgery look positively conservative. Picture medieval Europe at the height of courtly culture. Massive stone castles where nobles spent fortunes trying to outdo each other in displays of wealth and refinement. This was a world where appearance meant everything, where your social status could be read in the clothes you wore, the way you walked, even the color of your skin. But what they considered attractive would shock you to your core. The medieval ideal of beauty wasn't just different from ours, it was actively destructive. Take facial appearance, for example. Medieval nobles believed that pale, almost translucent skin was the ultimate sign of beauty and social status. But they didn't achieve this look through makeup or staying indoors. They used a substance called ceruse, a lead-based cosmetic that literally poisoned them to death. Women would apply thick layers of this white lead paint to their faces, necks, and hands every single day. The results were dramatic, skin so pale it seemed to glow in candlelight. But the lead was slowly destroying their nervous systems, causing hair loss, tooth decay, paralysis, and eventually death. Yet they continued using it because having dark or tan skin was considered a sign of peasant labor, something to be avoided at any cost. But the skin whitening was just the beginning. Medieval beauties also believed that having a high forehead was essential, so they would pluck out their hairlines, sometimes removing 2 or 3 inches of hair to create foreheads that looked enormous by today's standards. They would also pluck their eyebrows completely, leaving smooth, hairless brows that made them look like aliens. The obsession with pale skin extended to other horrifying practices. Wealthy women would deliberately bleed themselves to maintain a wan, sickly appearance. They believed that rosy, healthy-looking cheeks indicated low birth and manual labor. So they would have physicians drain their blood regularly to achieve that perfect deathly pallor. Many died from blood loss or infections, but those who survived were considered the most beautiful women of their time. Men weren't exempt from these disturbing beauty standards. Medieval male fashion included pointed shoes called poulaines that were so long they had to be tied to the wearer's legs with chains. Some of these shoes extended 3 feet beyond the actual foot, making walking nearly impossible. Wealthy men would hobble around in these absurd contraptions because the inability to move normally was seen as proof that you were so rich you never had to work. The pointed shoe trend became so extreme that the church actually banned it, declaring that the shoes were offensive to God because they prevented men from kneeling properly during prayer. But fashion proved stronger than religious authority, and men continued wearing increasingly ridiculous footwear that made basic movement a challenge. Medieval dental fashion was perhaps the most horrifying aspect of their beauty standards. Wealthy people would deliberately blacken their teeth or have them filed into points. They believed that white, straight teeth were a sign of peasant health, while damaged, discolored teeth indicated that you could afford expensive sugar and imported spices. Some nobles would even have their teeth extracted and replaced with gold or silver substitutes. Infections and abscesses were common, but the social status was worth the agony. The clothing standards were equally extreme and dangerous. Medieval nobles wore layers upon layers of heavy fabric, even in summer heat, because being able to afford clothing that made movement difficult was a sign of ultimate status. Women's dresses could weigh over 50 pounds, making simple activities like climbing stairs or sitting down major undertakings. But the most shocking aspect of medieval beauty standards was the practice of tight lacing. Centuries before Victorian corsets, medieval women were using brutal binding techniques to achieve impossibly tiny waist measurements. They would wrap their torsos so tightly that they couldn't breathe properly, couldn't eat normal meals, and often suffered crushed ribs and displaced organs. Many died from internal injuries caused by their own clothing. The ideal medieval female figure included not just a tiny waist, but also what they called a pregnancy belly, a rounded stomach that extended well beyond the chest. Women who were naturally thin would pad their dresses to achieve this look, while others would deliberately gain weight in specific areas to create the fashionable silhouette. The goal was to look perpetually pregnant, which medieval people associated with fertility and divine blessing. Hair fashion was equally extreme. Medieval nobles would spend hours each day arranging elaborate headdresses that could weigh 10 pounds or more. These constructions included wire frameworks, padding, false hair from other people, and sometimes even taxidermied animals. The headdresses were so tall that doorways in castles had to be heightened to accommodate them, and women often suffered severe neck and spine problems from supporting these architectural monstrosities. The obsession with height extended to shoes as well. Medieval women wore platform shoes called chopines that could add a foot or more to their height. Walking in these was so difficult that wealthy women needed servants to support them. The inability to move without assistance was considered the ultimate sign of refinement. Broken ankles and serious falls were common, but the fashion persisted for centuries. Medieval makeup wasn't limited to the deadly lead paint. They also used mercury to create a luminous skin effect, arsenic to maintain paleness, and various toxic plants to create colored cosmetics. The average wealthy medieval woman was essentially poisoning herself daily in pursuit of beauty, and the cumulative effects were devastating. Hair loss, tooth loss, organ failure, and early death were the price of fashion. But perhaps the most disturbing practice was bloodletting for beauty. Medieval physicians would deliberately cut veins to drain blood from women who wanted to maintain the perfect pale, weak appearance. They believed that too much blood created an unattractive, healthy glow, so women would have themselves bled regularly, often becoming so anemic they could barely function. The weaker and more fragile you appeared, the more beautiful you were considered. The beauty standards also included bizarre body modifications. Wealthy medieval people would use various devices to alter their bone structure over time. Binding devices that would gradually reshape feet, skulls, and even spines to achieve fashionable proportions. Children would have their heads bound from infancy to create the elongated skull shape that was considered attractive. Many suffered permanent brain damage, but the aesthetic results were highly prized. Medieval perfumes were equally toxic, made from heavy metals, poisonous plants, and animal secretions that we now know are carcinogenic. The goal was to create scents so strong they could be detected from across a room, because the ability to afford expensive perfumes was more important than actually smelling pleasant. Many of these fragrances were so concentrated they caused skin burns and respiratory problems. The religious aspect of medieval beauty standards added another layer of complexity. The church taught that physical beauty was a sign of spiritual favor, but also that vanity was sinful. This created a complicated dynamic where people felt obligated to pursue beauty as a religious duty, while simultaneously feeling guilty about their vanity. The result was often extreme behavior in both directions. Some medieval religious people would deliberately disfigure themselves to avoid the sin of vanity, while others would pursue beauty with religious fervor, believing that God wanted them to be as attractive as possible. This spiritual dimension made beauty standards even more intense and potentially dangerous than they might have been otherwise. The economic impact of these beauty standards was staggering. Wealthy families would spend more on cosmetics and fashion than on food or shelter. The market for beauty products was so lucrative that entire industries developed around providing increasingly extreme solutions for aristocratic vanity. Merchants would travel thousands of miles to supply exotic ingredients for cosmetics that were literally killing their customers. The social pressure to conform to these standards was overwhelming. Women who couldn't achieve the ideal appearance were considered unmarriageable. Men who didn't follow fashion trends were excluded from court society. The difference between beautiful and ugly could determine your entire life trajectory, making people willing to risk death rather than face social rejection. Medieval beauty manuals that have survived provide shocking insights into the extremes people would pursue. Instructions for using corrosive acids to remove unwanted hair, recipes for cosmetics that we now know are deadly poisons, and techniques for body modification that would be considered torture by modern standards. These weren't underground practices. They were mainstream beauty advice shared among the wealthy elite. The medical community of the time was aware of the dangers, but largely powerless to stop them. Physicians wrote treatises warning about the health risks of lead cosmetics and extreme body modification, but fashion proved stronger than medical advice. Doctors who refused to participate in dangerous beauty practices would lose their wealthy clients to competitors who were more willing to risk their patients' lives. The international trade in beauty products reveals just how widespread these practices were. Lead cosmetics from Italy, mercury preparations from Spain, exotic dyes from the Far East. The medieval beauty industry was a global enterprise that connected continents through shared standards of attractiveness that were literally toxic. Modern analysis of medieval remains has provided disturbing evidence of just how destructive these beauty standards were. Skeletons show signs of lead poisoning, malnutrition from extreme body modification, and bone damage from restrictive clothing. The pursuit of medieval beauty left physical evidence in the bones of people who died centuries ago. The psychological impact was equally severe. Medieval literature is filled with accounts of depression, anxiety, and obsessive behavior related to appearance. People became so focused on achieving impossible beauty standards that they lost touch with reality, developing what we would now recognize as severe body dysmorphic disorders. But perhaps the most horrifying aspect of medieval beauty standards was how they were passed down through generations. Children were raised from birth to believe that their natural appearance was shameful, that they needed to undergo painful and dangerous modifications to be acceptable in society. The cycle of self-destruction was built into the culture itself. The decline of these extreme beauty standards came slowly, as medical knowledge improved and trade connections brought exposure to different cultural values. But many of the underlying psychological patterns persist today. The willingness to risk health for appearance, the equation of beauty with social status, the use of dangerous chemicals to achieve artificial ideals. The next time you think modern beauty standards are extreme, remember the medieval nobles who literally poisoned themselves with lead makeup, who crushed their organs with binding garments, who bled themselves to achieve the perfect pallor. Their story reminds us that the pursuit of beauty has always been capable of becoming a form of slow suicide. If stories about the shocking extremes humans will pursue in the name of beauty fascinate you, subscribe to The Gray Hour for more explorations of how cultural standards can become deadly obsessions. Because sometimes the most disturbing truths about human nature are hidden in the things we've always considered normal.